And so it just, the dish by itself is a symbol of what we're trying to accomplish in the wake of Mother Emanuel. There's the dish itself, and we work with the churches, there's small groups, we have publication that we celebrated and recognized about Charleston, the aftermath of Mother Emanuel. And then also the exhibit that Carol spoke so movingly about. There's a prayer quilt that you see. A Lonnie Bunch visit was so important. This is a prayer quilt from people from across the nation, including the United Kingdom. And there's the banner that you saw earlier that we retrieved in front of the church. We met with ministers. This is Mount Zion AME, so we met with ministers to sustain this momentum. And then also the chief of police. We've incorporated the police very much a part of this process so that we can hear from them. Because it's so critical to the community. In fact, it was the Charleston Police Force that really initiated the Illumination Project in the wake of the tragedy of Mother Emanuel. So we're using memorabilia to heal wounds, to heal old wounds. We had the first meeting that I described earlier. There you see the banner behind John Hildreth and Albert Alston with the black shirt on is Liz's husband. So we work together, and then the key message again is it could happen to you, and we need to get engaged in our community now. So, and then for more information, you can visit my blog site. The essay that I've written, and Liz has contributed to it, and so has Carol. You can visit that website, and you can download a copy of it. I wanted to end now and open this up for questions. And questions and comments? Yes, please.
You mentioned something that was really important, the idea of language and how we talk about things. And I wonder how you balance truth-telling and very frank language, particularly when it comes to race-based violence.
That's right.
Both present and historical. How do you balance that truth-telling with language that, as you said, doesn't turn people off?
Yeah. Or
using language that is able to bring more people into the conversation?
Right.
How do you balance that?
The question is, how do you balance truth-telling about race, sexual identity, and so forth? How do you balance that with also the need to use more neutral language so you get people to come? Is that fair summary? And I wanted to, I can answer that question briefly, but I'd also like to hear from Liz and Carol. I think, again, the key is to keep your eyes on the prize. And so we know how deep-seated racism is, prejudice against, in terms of sexual orientation and other things. So if we want to bring people together, I think the thing is to get people together to come to the meeting, to be there. Then you can raise the topics, these more difficult topics, but that's not your headline. And that's one reason why I think it's important to work through existing institutions of churches, schools, community organizations, because you're talking in to a higher cause. If it's churches or church, synagogue, whatever, it's in the name of religion. Or if it's a community association, it's in the name of our community life. Or schools, it's the name of education. And so you're coming towards that purpose, and then we call these listening sessions. Now, race is very much talked about, but it's not in the headline. And then we've worked through respected community leaders, the minister, the principal of the school, the president of the community association. So they're putting out the word and their credibility to members of the community to come. So it's not the Charleston Illumination Project, we're there, but they're the ones who are doing it, and we get their commitment. And then when we're there, we have to have these more frank conversations. And also, I think we need to be careful about our own assumptions. I remember at one of the sessions, I made a comment to one of the other organizers, and I said, you know, this person just made just a small step, you know, and we were talking about race, and they made just a small step. And he very wisely said, George, you've got to be careful, because you may see it as a small step, but that person made a step. He got started. So that's why I think we need to, you know, in the world that we live in, we need to be very respectful of other people's experiences and backgrounds and their thoughts. Liz, you know.
George, as usual, inculcating some of my comments that I wanted to make. But the language is extremely important, but you have to be careful who you bring to the table. In a lot of instances, like he did mention, and I was thinking as he spoke, about respected community leaders. So in the community, if I'm asked, well, everybody knows that Liz talks with her mouth open. I will say what needs to be said. And so, but you find out that I do feel that I have earned the right to say the hard things. And so, but it's sometimes, and I've learned, it's the way that you say it. But if I'm speaking from the church, you know, the church is a respected area. And I think that if you're going to have a meeting, you're not going to have it in a club, you have it in a church. So that brings some kind of reverence to it. So at Mother Emanuel, when we have meetings, we always know that if it's going to be held in the church, it's going to be respectful, that the language is there. But if you bring committed people to the table, sometimes in meeting with people around the country, I heard this morning that someone wanted to declare like Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization, but it really isn't. So, which means that you have to bring the opposing views, but at the same time you bring respect, reverence, and you set the perimeters so that the language would not be defeated in the, for the purposes for which it was intended.
Actually, Carol, could you speak to that as well? I'm curious to hear from the exhibit's perspective, how language affects you.
Well, in this instance, we didn't write content. We did not do any of that. We didn't think it was appropriate or necessary. This was not in any way us. You know, usually as content developers, we're translating something. We didn't need to be doing that. There was the minister's words. We did, I'm exaggerating a little bit, we did write a little bit about what a prayer quilt was. A little bit of just sort of technical thing, but otherwise it was the words of the people who donated the objects and the words of the church, reaching out to the people who would come to the exhibit. So.
In working with communities, timing is everything. And so I wondered what process that each of you went through in determining the right time to bring up the notion of collecting, to have the first exhibit, to come together to discuss something that was so painful. Timing is important in work with individuals as well as with communities. How did you negotiate that?